So I didn't have like high expectations, let alone any expectations really for this movie. I had no idea what it was going to be, but like midway towards the end of this film, I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, yo, like, why is this movie trying so hard to be so complicated? Why is it trying to be so convoluted? And then the credits rolled and the name Shyamalan came up, and surprisingly, it wasn't M. Night Shyamalan. It was actually his daughter, Shauna Night Shyamalan, which this is apparently her directorial debut. And, well, I guess the apple just really does not fall far from the tree, because she got a lot of her daddy's instincts when it comes to filmmaking, which includes having a pretty interesting to almost great premise to a movie, and then just completely fumbling the execution. But regardless, this is The Watchers. Hey guys, it's your guy in the chair here, and this is my review for The Watchers, starring Dakota Fanning, and I have to go to my list because I don't know the rest of these actors. Georgina Campbell, Olwen Foyer, and Alistair Brammer. Yeah, I've never heard of any of these actors. And it was directed by Shauna Night Shyamalan, and our story follows...
This place. Who are you? We're just like you. Lost.
Her purpose of going to the woods was that important, but basically she works at a pet store, and the manager or the boss asked her to take this particular bird out to a certain section of the woods, which is apparently the bird's home. And while she goes out, she goes on an excursion. I mean, this isn't even like in the same state. She literally goes to a whole nother like place in order to take this bird where she needs to take it, which... Is the company paying for that? Because what boss is just asking someone at a pet store to take this bird back to its homeland? What do you think this is? But regardless, she takes this bird out to a section of the woods and essentially gets kidnapped, or actually not kidnapped, she gets lost in this certain section of the woods where these things called the Watchers lay, and essentially runs into this group of people where she has to completely let them stay in some box.
They watch us until the sun rises again. It's a window on the other side.
Essentially what happens is they all have to stay in this box after a certain time once the sun goes down, because these things come out, and if they catch you outside, they're gonna kill you. It's as quote-unquote simple as that, but it's really not, because then, like I said, it just does what the Shyamalans are now going to be known for, which it really was just M. Night at some point, but now we have his daughter, so it's just the Shyama cliche, which I can do a lot better job of coming up with something cooler than that, but we're just going to call it a Shyama cliche for now, and they just know how to make stuff a lot more complicated than it needs to be. But look, let's just get into what I liked, and honestly what I didn't like about this movie. Okay, so starting with what I liked about the movie. Look, the premise and the story and the lore to this film is actually pretty interesting. The story behind the Watchers, the way they operate, the way this entire situation plays out, or not necessarily plays out, but the way the situation is set up, it's pretty damn interesting. It's actually pretty cool. I was very intrigued about the story behind the Watchers themselves, and essentially what their purpose is, why they study these people in a box, why they do the things they do, why they just watch them, and the story behind, of course, the rules of how everything works, how the people have to be inside the box by sundown. They can't turn their backs to the glass. They have to be sure that they're following certain rules so they don't anger these things. It's really cool. The premise, story, and lore is pretty cool, but that is like 90% of M. Night Shyamalan movies. Like, he always has very cool concepts. My thing with M. Night Shyamalan is always the fact that he has really cool premises, really cool concepts. It's just when it comes to the execution of them, he fumbles it more or less. Like, I mean, depending on which side you are on that argument. For me, he fumbles it more than he doesn't, if that makes any sense. But look, again, this is kind of the same thing. Now, this is Ashana Night Shyamalan's directorial debut. So I'm not about to sit up here and bash this young girl for chasing her dreams and honestly following after her dad's footsteps and creating a film and putting herself out there to create something amazing. I'm not about to sit up here and bash her for that. I just see a lot of the Shyama similarities in her work to her dad. And look, like I said, the concept is really cool. But when it comes to everything else, just about damn near everything else in this movie, it did not work for me. The one performance that I absolutely adored in this movie was the old lady who played Madeline, Olwen Fourier. She has accents over her name, over the E's in her name, so I don't know what that necessarily pronounces to be, but it's Olwen Fourier, who played Madeline, the old lady. She was the best part of the movie for me. Dakota Fanning's character, I'm not necessarily sure if she was supposed to be as boring as she was, but she was putting me to sleep. Her character was very fucking boring, very fucking dull, and the guy next to me literally passed out like 40 minutes in, so I honestly was like, he ain't really missing much, and thank God he didn't snore. He was at least he's a very respectful sleeper. But look, Dakota Fanning's performance was putting me to sleep. She was very boring in this movie, and Dakota Fanning's a great actor, so I personally think that's just how her character was written. She was just written to be this nonchalant, not necessarily nonchalant, but very vanilla, just very NPC. She just played off as like an NPC type character. Like, she really just had any like true emotion that you needed from this character. She just didn't have that, and that may be due to a traumatic thing that happened to her in her past, which they highlight not a lot but a good amount in this movie. Maybe that's the story behind why her character is so boring, but I found myself to be extremely bored by her character. Now, the other characters who are in the box, I'm just going to call it the box. I think they call it like a coop or something like that, but I'm just going to call it the box. The other characters that were in the box, they were interesting. The girl that played Kira, I thought she was pretty good. I thought she was actually a very decent addition to this movie. It was just her character, the way her character was written and her thinking process, which may be due to the fact that the woods plays tricks on your mind, as Madeline kept hinting to, but it was just like some of the thought processes for these characters, some of the things that they would think in one point in the movie, and then some things they would think in the next point in the movie, didn't necessarily add up, because it's like these characters are supposed to be smart or smarter than they are seeming to be, but they're making dumbass fucking decisions or just having dumbass thoughts and just, acting on them. But the other kid, I think his name was Daniel, Oliver Finnegan. I was not a fan of his performance in the beginning, but once I actually got through a decent amount of the movie, he wasn't that bad. He actually wasn't that bad. It was just, I think it was the way that these characters were written. It was very odd to me, but the most interesting part of this movie for me by far was the lore surrounding the Watchers, and the designs of the Watchers is really cool, but like this movie itself is just really boring. It's really slow. All the interesting and intriguing shit you think you're going to see, you don't end up seeing it, and you just really get a more boring, played out version of what this movie turned out to be. Just completely boring and damn near a snooze fest. It was just something that really didn't hold my attention. Like I said, I didn't have really sky high expectations for this movie, and like I said, this is Ashana Night Shyamalan's directorial debut, so she's going to have plenty of more opportunity to be able to improve upon this one. It was just, for me, I really was not invested as I guess I wanted to be. I really didn't have much expectations for this movie, so I didn't know how invested I wanted to be. But when it came to me trying to latch onto something to keep me intrigued in this movie, it was really failing, especially towards the end, because the end is where we just went all over the fucking place. They just tried everything. They had so many fucking ideas for the end of this movie. It went all around the world in 80 fucking seconds. It was ridiculous. I mean, look, there's a certain point in this movie towards the end where I think it's the end of the movie, where I think that, the movie's about to be over. So I'm like, thank goodness because I really don't know how much more of this I can sit through. There's 20 more minutes after that. After that point in time where I'm thinking to myself, this movie's about to be done, there was 20 more minutes, and it was the most unnecessary 20 minutes I've seen in the film, because it added nothing, added absolutely nothing to the movie whatsoever, and it just frustrated me, because it's like, okay, you're actually killing all momentum you just had in the first hour 30 for this movie. I think this movie's like an hour 55 or an hour 42. So for the first hour 20, it had some momentum. It wasn't a lot of momentum, but it had more momentum than it did in that last 20 minutes. The last 20 minutes killed this completely. The ending was atrocious. The ending to this movie was absolutely atrocious. Tried to do some heartfelt, meaningful bullshit that I truly could not bring myself to care about, because they tried to do way too much. Like, they should have just kept it very simple, kept it straight in the woods, and we would have been fine. This complicated ass shit that y'all were trying to do at the end, making these motherfucking shapeshifters and fairies and shit, it was just it was the Shyamalama ding dong shit that we normally deal with. But look, like I said, this young lady definitely has potential. She definitely has potential. I see it. I've seen it in the beginning of this movie. It's there. It is truly there. The story and the lore, and there were very creepy moments as well. She did a very good job with those. It was just the execution of the entire premise. Just when it got past a certain point, I feel like they did not really know where they wanted to go with this movie, and they did whatever came to their mind. And look, overall, The Watchers, for me, I'm not going to say it's disappointing, because like I said, I had no expectations for this movie whatsoever, but it's skippable. This is a skippable movie. People don't need to watch this. Nobody needs to watch this. Nobody needs to watch The Watchers, because it's just pointless. It's not really worth your time. Like, I could truly see, like, as fast as everything's going to streaming nowadays, if you were to watch this thing at home, you would turn it off within maybe the first 35 to 40 minutes. And it would have been a waste of your $20. So that's why y'all should really start going to the movies. But it's not a big deal. But look, it's a movie. It's not a good movie, but it is a movie for sure. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not like horrendous or anything. Well, it's not really that good, but it's not horrendous. There's a little gray area in between the horrendous and good and horrendous, and The Watchers is probably somewhere in between there. But for all those reasons and so many more, guys, I'm going to give The Watchers a 2 out of 5 stars. All right, guys, so The Watchers, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Look, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Look, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff and so much more. I really do appreciate it. Look, this is your guy in the chair. More content coming to you soon.